Hello and welcome to the Premier League season preview for West Ham United and Wolverhampton Wanderers, the final one in this series where we've previewed all 20 Premier League clubs ahead of the forthcoming Premier League season. I'm joined as always by Andrew Pollard to talk about West Ham and Wolves. Let's start with West Ham because the speculation is rife about this club not looking the same. I mean, we're recording this, we should point out, on a Wednesday. We don't know when this is going to be going out. By the time this goes out, there could be a different manager. I've no idea what's going on. It's insane that we're talking about David Moyes potentially resigning from West Ham before the season even starts. It's a shambles.
Yeah, it seems like there's never a dull moment if you're a West Ham fan. And the fact that they brought David Moyes back for a second spell and he steered them clear of relegation, and you're thinking, okay, he's had a summer, albeit a brief summer, to maybe put his plans in place for what's ahead for the next season. And now here we are on the cusp of the Premier League season kicking off 2020-21. Moyes might be resigning. You think David Gold, David Sullivan, they seem to love controversy. They seem to, I don't know. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. And who knows? Like you said, by the time this video goes out, David Moyes could have left West Ham United, which seems ridiculous. I mean, and you look at it and thinking, well, I can see why he'd be unhappy because they've only made one signing, which is a signing that was already agreed in Thomas Souček from Slavia Prague, who was on loan last season, looked like a very good player, and that deal's been made permanent for 15 million. But other than that, you're looking at who else could be going to West Ham. I know that they're trying to haggle over James Tarkowski with Burnley, sorry. But yeah, Moyes clearly not happy, and Moyes might take a walk. It's nuts.
And we alluded to this just the other day on our West Brom season preview that West Ham, especially Mark Noble, not happy with the transfer goings on. Not just players not being signed, but players going and for ridiculous prices in their eyes.
Yeah. The great Diangana is the one that's been highlighted, going to West Bromwich Albion for a fee supposedly in the region of £12 million. And this is a player who has been in the West Ham system since, I think it was like since he's 8 or 9. He's been there. He's been earmarked as this big prospect, this future star of the team. Went on loan to West Brom last season, did really well in the Championship. Everybody involved in West Ham seems to think that, okay, right, he's coming back to us. His loan spell's finished. He's going to be a part of the first team squad now this upcoming season, and that's that. And £12 million, which in the modern market is a snip. You see Mark Noble, the captain, coming out on social media and saying how angry and disappointed he is about it. And Mark Noble's very much Mr. West Ham. He always does have the best interest of the club in mind, but he's always he's not spoken out of turn for anything. And so for him to go on social media and essentially rip into the club, that kind of says all you need to know. And you see people like Jack Wilshere backing him up and other players. Jack Wilshere does still play football. Crazy, I know. But other West Ham players all showing their upset at this deal. And David Moyes likewise was, I think, taken aback by, one, that the player was sold, and two, it was such a relatively small fee given the current market, and
especially because West Ham are being told you have to sell to buy in this market. Yep. Well, who are you going to get to replace him for £12 million?
Yeah, that's what they've said. That was the kind of the silver lining in the eyes of Gold and Sullivan, was a statement that came out saying all the money raised by this sale will be reinvested in the squad. And it's like, well, you've got this player who loves the club, who's hotly tipped to be one of the next big things, and you sell him for £12 million. Okay, nice one. Here you go, David Moyes. Here's £12 million. Go and find somebody that's going to improve the squad. And it's £12 million just a drop in the ocean in modern football. And I can see why the players are unhappy. I can see why David Moyes is unhappy. It seems like it's kind of chaos already for West Ham before a ball's even been kicked.
Standard. My dad is a West Ham fan, and he's just rolling his eyes yet again regarding this. They've got a relatively good squad on paper, in my opinion. I'm slightly biased as a result of my family connection with it all. But James Tarkowski, easy for me to say, is a name that will not go away. Yeah. And how important would he be for West Ham?
Oh, I think that will be an absolutely brilliant signing. I'll be honest, not to downplay the Hammers, but I think he could if he wanted to, I think he could go to a higher club than that.
Mm-hmm.
I think he'd be a good signing for Spurs. I think he'd be a great signing for Arsenal. You're thinking Manchester United, they're on the lookout for a centre half. I think that he'd be a fantastic signing. We talk about David Moyes here, about the problems he's got at West Ham, and Sean Dyche, likewise at Burnley, has had problems with his board, where he's just kind of almost taken them as far as he could, and he's looking to keep onto hold of his best players while trying to add to that. And now he might have one, well, arguably his prized possession in James Tarkowski sold to West Ham. I think, but from the West Ham side, I think it's great. I think that would be if they could pull that off, I think it'd be a great bit of business. Pairing with Issa Diop, I think that's a really good two there, and I think he's proven over the last 4 or 5 years, Tarkowski, that he's one of the best centre halves in the league. He's got himself into the England squad at times. I think, yeah, if West Ham can get him, and for the fees talked of 25 to 30 million, it seems to be, I think that represents a really good deal for West Ham.
West Ham at the start of last season were being tipped for a relatively high up top half finish as a result of the money they spent and the club that they are. Declan Rice is an obvious name. I'm going to point him out because of how integral he is to West Ham, it seems. But who are the other important players in this Hammers side as we look to the next season?
Well, I guess, even though he might not be the first name that jumps out, because I think Felipe Anderson's a great footballer. I think Andrei Yarmolenko's a great player. I think Jarrod Bowen looks like a really promising player, having signed from Hull in the January transfer window. But and Thomas Souček, I thought he adapted really well to Premier League football. But the one I can't help not spotlight, even though he's not the obvious one, is just based on his performances in an empty arena setting since lockdown, was Mikel Antonio. He did he seems to, if you look across the Premier League, and you look at the players that thrived in the unique setting we're going to have going forward for the time being of no fans, it's like Mikel Antonio was on fire. So I guess it would be unfair not to put a spotlight on him. But yeah, I think the other players I mentioned there, I think Felipe Anderson is quality football. I mean, there's talk of him maybe leaving. I think if you're looking to do anything with West Ham, I think you do your best to keep him.
And he's got a lot to prove this season. A bit of an off-season last year, I think it's fair to
say. He had a few niggles and a few injuries, and when he did play, he never seemed to quite hit the form of the year prior when he was a revelation. I think it's a big year for him. But like you said, there is quality in this squad. Even look at Lucas Fabianski in goal is a very solid goalkeeper. I really like Cresswell. I think he's a really good fullback who's just technically really good and offers a lot going forward. So there's a lot of plus points in this West Ham squad, but it's West Ham. So there's always going to be some sort of controversy around the corner, as we're finding now.
Yes, exactly. Let's move from West Ham to Wolverhampton Wanderers. A mammoth season for them last year. It went on for, I believe, it must have been over a year.
Yep.
Insane that their European adventure feels like it only just ended at the hands of the eventual winners, Sevilla, of course. A great few seasons for them. Can they maintain their momentum this year? They've done very well to hold on to some of their key players.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like barely a week goes by that Ruben Neves doesn't get talked about as moving to somewhere across Europe. So to keep all of the players they've got, I think they've done well. Raul Jimenez, of course, been linked with Juventus and Manchester United in recent months. He's pivotal to what they do. I think just a proper striker. I think he's great to watch, just what he brings to the game. It was a brilliant year for Wolves. And again, like a few other teams like Leicester, like Sheffield United, it was a season that was, at the time, was maybe tinged in a bit of that's disappointing. That's a disappointing end to the season. But they came 7th in the end. They were on the same points as Spurs, who were in 6th. They got to the quarterfinals of the Europa League. Like you said, they missed out. Well, they lost to the eventual winners, Sevilla. So it was a really good season for Wolves. I just think that they were so good for so much of the season that people were thinking that they nailed on for 6th or 5th, maybe higher. And then they ended up 7th, which at the beginning of the season I think would have been a great finish to take. And I think they can maintain that. I know there was a lot of unhappy Wolves fans about the lack of signings that have been made, but the last week or so we've seen them bring in a couple of names. So I think there's a lot to look forward to with Wolves, and it's a big miss. I think will be Matt Doherty. We talked about it before on here and off air about how the price they got for him seems 15 million for Matt Doherty, who's been one of the better fullbacks, wing backs, whatever you want to classify him as, in the last 18 months or 2 seasons. Seems like I don't know why he's gone for that little change, unless there was, I don't know, maybe his contract was running down. I didn't know that, but yeah, I think that Wolves, I fancy to be thereabouts again. A little bit like Spurs. I think Spurs will be thereabouts for where they were, and I think Wolves will be in that same kind of pack of maybe like, I don't know, 5th to 8th or 9th.
Yeah, I guess I'd be inclined to agree with that. Let's talk about one of those signings then. Fabio Silva. He has been dubbed a wonder kid, the next big thing. Is he?
I'll be honest, I've barely seen him play. I think I've maybe seen him play a half of football. And he's 18 from Porto. People are comparing him to João Felix, who went to Atletico Madrid for ludicrous money at a similar age. And you look into his record, he's only played 21 senior games and he's scored 3 goals. It's so to go and splash out the 36 million, I think it was, on him, then that's a lot of money to spend for any club to spend on an 18-year-old. But you also, I think you have to trust Wolves in this, especially when it comes to Portuguese players, because they clearly they've been doing all sorts of groundwork on Portugal players. It feels like they're trying to amass like the Portugal 11. It's Cristiano's coming next season. That's it.
I was away camping with a friend of mine who supports Wolves and asked him, if Portugal win the Euros, how are you going to feel? And he said, yeah, basically the same as if England won it. So.
But you got like Real Patricio and goal, João Moutinho, Ruben Neves. There's Diogo Jota. And it seems like they're adding more to it, obviously with Fabio Silva. And you look at the names they're linked with still, and there's a couple of Portuguese players there. But yeah, I think that clearly. I think for a club like Wolves to invest 36 million in someone who's 18, and considering Wolves their experiences with Portuguese players and they're scouting of Portugal over the last couple of seasons, I think you have to trust the process and think, well, if they're paying 36 million pounds for this 18-year-old, they know that there's something there, there's something special there. He's not yet to have a Portugal cap, but he's trained with the senior squad under Sergio Conceição, and I think that's one of the more intriguing stories of the Premier League. I think for me is, what's this 18-year-old worth a lot of money going to be like? Because nobody knows really.
I like this because often we hear about these wonder kids and the next big things, and they're in the Bundesliga or La Liga or Serie A. But it's nice to have one of them in the Premier League with all eyes focused on him. We've sort of named the majority of Wolves as key players. One name we haven't mentioned, of course, Adama Traore. Interesting to see if he can maintain the consistency that maybe he was slightly lacking last season. I certainly felt it whenever I'd bring him in my fantasy team, he'd not do anything and I'd immediately take him out and he'd tear Man City to pieces or whatever. He is crucial for them again, though.
Not to give away my fantasy football tips when we do our video or podcast about it, but I noticed that he's still, I think, 5.5 million in fantasy, which could be a bargain. But yeah, he seemed to tail off towards the end of last season a little bit after the restart, where he wasn't starting as many games. He was coming off the bench, but he'd still have an impact. And I think, I think that Wolves are the one club that seems to be getting the best out of him. We've seen him come through at Barcelona and be erratic. He had a spell at Middlesbrough, Villa, where you can see there's that raw talent there, but nobody seems to be able to harness it. I think in Nuno Espirito Santo that he seems to know how to get the best out of this player, even if it does mean that he starts on the bench, because when he has done that, he's inadvertently come on and changed the game, or changed many games. So I think Adama Traore is really important for them. Raul Jimenez is so key to the way they play, and he works so hard. And I think Connor Cody as well. I just think he's such a leader of men, which maybe you look across some of the supposed top teams, you're thinking, well, have Arsenal got any leaders at the back? No. Chelsea, they brought in Thiago Silva, but Chelsea last season, no leaders at the back. A lot of these top teams, Spurs, nobody leads from the back. Alderweireld maybe, but yeah, I think in Connor Cody, I think Wolves have got a proper leader. It was great to see him. Obviously, as a Welshman, I'm not really asked about the England football team, but it was great to see Connor Cody get that recognition and get his England debut, because to me, I think that's long overdue. I think he's a really important factor for Wolves, and I think he's kind of almost become like Mr. Wolves in the last few seasons. I know he's a Scouser. I know he came through Liverpool, but I think he's so important, Connor Cody.
Yeah, and it was funny to see him playing for England and being the bossy central defender that he is at Wolves, just in an England jersey. I think he's a very important player for them as well. It's going to be fascinating to see how Wolves do this season. As with all the teams, do let us know your thoughts on everything we've discussed, though, in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Football, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily football podcasts whilst you're out and about. This has been the Premier League season preview. We've done all 20 sides. If you've missed any of them, you can check them out on YouTube or, as I say, in podcast form. We are going to be bringing you our fantasy football tips as well. Don't you worry. And if you want anything else from us, if you'd love to see some other types of content, do feel free to suggest it in the comments section below, or continue the conversation on Twitter at WhatCultureFC. Watch, they can follow both of us. Andrew, where can people get you on Twitter?
You can get me at Cultured Left Peg.
And you can find me at Adam Wilbourn. Follow us all at WhatCultureFC. But this has been, as I said, the Premier League season preview for West Ham and Wolves. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast as well, because myself and Andrew will be doing a little preview podcast of the upcoming Premier League opening weekend before it all kicks off on Saturday. The Premier League is back. I feel like it never went away. My thanks to Andrew Pollard. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.